Hi, welcome to part 2 of this week's lecture. We are actually going to talk about adding multiple backgrounds. To be able to add multiple backgrounds to the same element, we list the backgrounds by using follow comma separated list. So we can put background column, and then we have background 1, comma, background 2, comma, and background 3, comma, and so on. So in this example here, we can see that we have multiple backgrounds that we have, and we have all the properties for each of those backgrounds. So all those properties that we can put them in one line. So this is the properties of background 1, these are the properties of background 2, and these are the properties of background 3. So, and this is basically the gray color as the background if the browser doesn't support the background images. So if the browser doesn't support this, show this one, which is basically is a gray color of background. Next thing that we are going to talk about is setting border width and the color. There are several style properties that we can use to format the border using the CSS. So to define the thickness of a specific border, we can use this property. Border dash side dash width, column, width, semicolon. So side is either top, right, bottom, or left. And width is the width of the border. So that's how we can define that the border width for the with the CSS property. We can also define the appearance of the border by using this style. So we can put the border side, for example, in here, border left, the border left, and these are the style that we define. We add 1 pixel solid gray, so this is the gray color, border to the left and right edges of the page body. And in here also, so this is to the left, 1 pixel of gray, 1 pixel of gray to the right side as well. So in here we are defining 4 pixel double medium green border to the side element. So in here to the side style, and this is to the page body, this is to the style to the side style. That's what we are adding. So on page 277, you can see the page design with the borders by using the left and right page border, and also the side. So you can see how those elements are actually standing out much better against the typed images that you have. So you sometimes want to emphasize certain parts, so it's better to use these type of border design in order for our elements to stand out better comparing to the other parts. So up to now, the default border is is not round corners. But if we want to actually round off any of the corners of the border, we can actually use border radius. So we use border radius top left, top right, bottom left. So then our borders will have rounded corners. The next thing we will talk about is applying a border image. Basically, a border image is based on graphic image. The graphic image is basically sliced into 9 sections representing the 4 corners, the 4 sides, and the interior piece. We will not care about the interior piece because that's where the content of the object will appear. And the 4 corners become the corners of the border, and the 4 sides are either stretched or tiled to fill the border top, right, bottom, and left sides. So a border image is applied using this type of property, URL slice repeat. URL indicates the source of graphic image, where that source could be the name of the file. You don't have to, if it's in the same folder, you don't have to put the full path, or if it's not in the same folder, you will actually have to put the actual path of where this picture is located. A slice indicate the width or height of the slice used to create the sides and corners, and repeat basically indicates if the sides slice should be stretched or tiled to cover the 4 sides of the border. Basically, the repeat option will have 4 different values. Stretch, which the slices are stretched to fill each side. Repeat, the slices are tiled to fill each side. Round, when the slices are tiled to fill each side. If they are not filled, the sides with an integer number of the tiles, the slices are basically rescaled until they do. And the space, the slices are tied to each side. If they don't fill the side with an integer number, extra space is basically distributed around the tiles. You have to basically play around with this code. Explaining like this doesn't really help. So when you are doing this exercise on page 282, you will be able to create a graphic border and play around with this. So we can basically, the format of it, you can basically put the image, the border image, the name of it, and then you can put like 20 pixel wide slice and stretch. So slices are stretched to match the image border in this case. So in this here is the 20 pixel from each side. And that's how you use your border slices. You want it to be stretch. So you are stretching to match the image border in this case. The next things that we are going to talk about is basically creating a text shadow. In this part, we are also going to talk about how to create a 3D effect. So the first thing is creating the text shadow. So to give our text on the page some kind of a visual effect, we can use the CSS to add some shadow using this type of format. Text shadow, column, color, offset X, offset blur. So this is basically the syntax that we are going to use. Color is the shadow color. Offset X and offset Y are the distances of the shadow from the text in basically horizontal and vertical direction. And blur, it can basically show us the amount by which the shadow is spread out, creating a blurred effect. The shadow offset value are expressed, so the positive value push the shadow to the right and down, while negative value move the shadow to the left and up. The default blur value is always 0 and create a shadow with distant hard edges. As the blur value increases, if you move it up maybe 3, 4, the edge of the shadow becomes less distinct and blend more in the text background. Again, this is a great thing for you guys to experiment with it while you're doing this part of the exercise. So this is the example of the text shadow in here. So basically this is the shadow color. This is the horizontal offset, the vertical offset, and then the blur size. So remember, the default size is 0. So this, if you have a 25, this is basically you're going to experiment with this and see what's going to happen. So you can have basically multiple shadow that can be added to the text by indicating each shadow definition in comma separated list. Again, you could have multiple shadow. That's why you have one shadow here, column, a comma, another shadow. So you can just use the comma and have multiple shadow definition showing up there. So also we are going to talk about the creating a box shadow. Shadows, they can be added to any block of element in a web page by basically using the box shadow property. So this is the syntax that we are going to have. So color, offset X, offset Y, and blur. Color, offset X, offset Y, and blur have the same meaning for the box shadow as they do for text shadow. So it's the same thing as we have discussed. So again, you can have multiple box shadow again by using the comma separated list. So this works exactly same as text shadow. So this is an example of a box shadow that we have here. So this is the color, the gray shadow color, and then you have basically the offset X, offset Y, and also blur. So in the blur we have 25 pixel. Remember, the default is 0. So you need to again play around with this type of a box shadow to be able to create some shadows on your pages. Also, box shadow, they can be placed inside the element as well as outside. So by adding an interior shadow, we can create the illusion of a beveled edge in which the objects, they appear to rise out of the background, which this is kind of give us a 3D effect. So to create the interior shadow, we will add inset keyword to the box shadow property. So we are putting inset keyword. We are placing this shadow inside the object. So this is again the color, and then we are going to put the offset X, offset Y, and blur in here, same as what we did previously. So that's what we are going to put. So in here is placing a medium gray shadow in lower right interior corner, and in here placing a medium gray shadow in the upper left interior corner. There are other things that in this chapter that we are not going to discuss because there are a lot more that you just need to play around with it. We are not going to talk about color gradient, but you can actually look at page 296 and just remember that the CSS3 supports the linear gradient and radial gradient. So we're not going to talk about that. You can play around with that part. The last thing that we are going to actually, we are not going to talk about the transparent object as well. You can play around with that. So the last thing that we are going to actually talk about is we are going to work with image map. Image map is also very important part of basically important part of the CSS, and I want to just talk more about the image map than the other types. So basically an image map is a way of defining multiple clickable link area, or what we call it hotspots, within one image. These hotspots, they can be used to navigate or to display information about the image they cover. So, and the hotspot can be linked to different URL through information that is given in an image map. So image maps, they are supported by HTML on the client-side image map and also on the server-side image map. So in the client-side image map, basically it is defined within the web page and handled entirely by the web browser. While on the server-side image map, it relies on program running on the web server to create and administer the map. Normally, client-side maps are easier to create and they don't rely on a connection to the server for us in order to run. So let's look at how what are the syntax that we are going to use. Client-side image maps are defined with the map with this map name, text, hotspot, and then close map. The text is the name of the image map, and hotspot are defined region within an image that are basically linked to different URLs. They can be placed anywhere within the body of the web page, and they are not actually displayed by the browser. They are simply used as a reference for mapping the location of the hotspot within that image. The most common practice is to put a map element below the corresponding image. That's the best way or best practice basically if you want to use the image map. So hotspots within the map element can be defined using these syntax. So you put the area, you put the shape equals shape, coordinates equals coordinates, and basically the href is the URL, and then the alt is the text as well. So basically what it describes that image. So the shape is the shape of hotspot, coordinates are the boundaries of the region, URL is the URL of hypertext link, and text is an alternate text for non-graphical browser, so it explains that what that is. So circular hotspots are defined using also certain attributes. So shape equals circle, for example, coordinates x, y, radius. So x and y, they are coordinates of the center of the circle, and radius is the circle's radius. So in here you're saying, oh, the shape is circle. Is it the only one? No. We can actually create rectangles, polygons, and circles. And so basically for the rectangular hotspot, the shape and coordinates have basically general form. So you can put shape rectangle and then the coordinates left, top, right, bottom. So for this, for the circular hotspot, you need to define the coordinates and also radius. So this x and y, as we have here, are the coordinates of the center of the circle, and radius is the circle's radius. So this is just how we are going to define it if the shape is circle. But if it's the shape is basically rectangle, the coordinates are easy: left, right, top, bottom. Sorry, left, top, right, bottom. You don't need to have the radius. If you look at basically other hotspot type, the circular and polygonal, you can actually look at them on page 326. As you can see, for the defining the polygonal hotspot, we would put shape poly, and then we have the coordinates. Sometimes we show the coordinate for 5-sided polygon. So you're going to have, if you look at on page 326, you can see the coordinates that we have defined for that as well. The next thing that we are going to talk about is basically to apply an image map to an image. So we are going to actually use the syntax, image src URL, alt text, use map, # map, where the map is the name assigned to the image map within the current HTML file. So this is an example here. So we have the name of our image here, the text for the alternate, so that's the family portrait. And so in here, to use map, we are going to use #family map. So applies the family map image map to the image. So that's how we are doing the image map. So this concludes this chapter. So for your exercises, you're going to actually work on creating an image map as well as few other things. And so if you have any other question, please let me know. So basically for this week, we are going to follow tutorial 4, and we are going to actually do the exercises, and it will be but we are going to actually go up to page 292, and we are not going to cover a few more things in there until the image map. So we are skipping some parts of tutorial 4. So this is week 7. So next week we will have a midterm, and the midterm will cover everything that we have talked about from week 1 till week 4. Next week we are going to actually talk about tutorial 6. I'm going to skip tutorial 5 and we are going to talk about tutorial 6, and then we are going to look at tutorial 5 after we looked at tutorial 6, and at the end we are going to follow with with the JavaScript. So we're only going to cover 2 more chapters of this book, and then the rest of the class will be focused more on JavaScript. I will also want you guys to think about the project. I'm going to put the project and for this course as well, so you have a time this week to look at the final project for this class. And I have to maybe put you in groups of 3 and 2 because we only have 5 people in this course registered right now because of the switch that we made in the curriculum. So I need you guys to work in groups of 3 and 2, and if you prefer to work with someone else in this class, just let me know. Otherwise I just put you in a group. I hope you have a great week, and I will talk to you soon. Take care. Bye bye.